everyone, it's Andrea from Doctors of Running, and today I'm here to do a 200-mile review of the Brooks Hyperion Max. The Hyperion Max has really become my go-to everything shoe ever since I received it for review, I think in December or January. It's really replaced the New Balance Beacon as a shoe I can take for easy runs, long runs, use for intervals, strides. I'm really happy with the performance of this shoe. And it's actually exceeded my expectations in terms of it's actually better than the Beacon at several things, particularly durability. I've never gotten 200 miles out of a Beacon, and the Hyperion Max is still going strong. So just to review some specs, we have done a full review on the website, and I've done a couple of comparison videos with the Hyperion Max and the Topo Cyclone 2 and the Hyperion Tempo. You can check those out. But the Hyperion Max is a light shoe. It's 7.5 ounces for a men's size 9, 6.7 ounces for a women's size 8. That's light. That's what makes this shoe awesome, not just for easy runs, but for intervals and workouts too. I've really thought, after doing several long runs in the shoe, for people who don't want to race in a super shoe, this would be a great half marathon or marathon racer for somebody. So just something to think about with this shoe. Could be a great do-it-all option for somebody. Stack height, 34 millimeters in the heel, 26 in the forefoot. It's an 8 millimeter drop. It really doesn't feel like 8 millimeters to me though, because of how heavily rockered it is. I land on my lateral midfoot, and to me it feels more like a 4 to 6 millimeter drop shoe. Just to go over some more details about the shoe, it's got a DNA Flash midsole, which is nitrogen infused EVA. Because it's EVA, when it's below sub-freezing, it definitely stiffens up, doesn't feel quite as cushioned as it does at warmer temperatures. That really hasn't kept me from using it when it's really cold out, but just noting you do feel a difference in the cushioning level. I got a men's size for my test pair because I've always found that Brooks shoes are just a little narrow in the toe box for me when I get a women's pair. So I found this shoe just fits perfectly as long as I get the men's size. I've got enough room in the toe box, nice snug fit in the midfoot, comfortable rear foot. I've never had any issues with my heel slipping, no blisters. Just been so happy with the way this shoe fits. My one gripe with this shoe is that you can see that there's a lace loop here, like closer to your toes, but otherwise the tongue isn't gusseted. I wish they had put the lace loop further up closer to the ankle because it would definitely help hold the tongue in place better. I do get a little bit of tongue shifting, especially on my longer runs. Sometimes I'll get back and the tongue is off to one side. It's not uncomfortable, but I would just like the tongue to be a little more stable. So maybe for version 2, they can shift this loop a little bit further up the tongue. Like I said, this is a heavily rockered shoe. It's got a pretty big heel bevel and a pretty significant forefoot rocker. So for people who land on their heel, this shoe is really going to propel you forward pretty quickly. For people who land at their midfoot like I do, it just feels so natural to land here because the heel bevel really gets that heel out of the way. Like I said, this doesn't feel like an 8 millimeter drop shoe to me. So people who definitely look for like 4 to 6 millimeter drop shoes, don't be scared away by the 8 millimeter drop label on this shoe, because it doesn't feel like that. The forefoot rocker, you can see it's pretty significant. It doesn't feel aggressive, and to me it feels a little bit later than a lot of other shoes. So at easy paces, it doesn't feel like it's really like forcing me forward. It just feels like it rolls on really nicely. I've used this shoe for every type of workout. Super easy short recovery runs, long easy runs, marathon pace tempos, 2-mile pace intervals. I just used it for 10 400s at 3K pace last week. And this shoe is awesome. Like, if I had to buy just one shoe, this would be it, because it really can do everything. Is it the best at racing? No, for that I would prefer to use a super shoe, but it really can do it all. So I think that kind of justifies its $170 price tag. If this was just like an easy day shoe, or even if it was just like a performance trainer, 170 is a little bit much for a shoe that's EVA, but the fact that this shoe really can do it all makes it worth the $170. Talking about durability, so like I said, this replaced the Beacon, and I loved the Beacon, but I rarely got more than like 150 to 175 miles out of them because there was so much exposed midsole that I just wore it all down at the lateral midfoot and at the toes. But you can see the rubber is really barely worn on this shoe. I've got 210 miles on these, so I would expect these to last at least another 100 miles, if not more. I think it'll probably come down to how long the midsole feels good versus when this outsole rubber breaks down. So I've got to say I'm really impressed with the durability of the outsole. So definitely a check mark in the durability and value column there. One other feature I like about the shoe, it's hard to see in the video, but there's a lot of lateral sole flare, particularly in the forefoot. And what that does is for people like me who land too heavily on the outside of their foot, it kind of helps push you towards the medial side. It helps me load my first MTP joint better. And that just feels really comfortable and natural to me. People who have the opposite problem where they land too far medially might not like this lateral sole flare feature as much. I think that's one of the things that Matt didn't like about it. But if you're like me where you tend to land too far on the outside, this lateral sole flare is a really nice feature. I would say in terms of the foam breaking in, around 150 miles, I noticed it felt like it was softening up a little bit. Like it kind of felt like it flexed a little bit more like in the midfoot right at initial contact. I wouldn't say that's a bad feeling, but I just noticed it wasn't quite as firm at initial contact than it was when the shoe was brand new. So for those who try it on and think, oh, this shoe feels really stiff, is it going to break in at all? Yeah, it's going to break in, but it might take 100 to 150 miles to do so. So I want to talk a little bit about what I've used the shoe for. Like I said, I've used it for everything. I am on a trip right now, and this is the shoe I brought because I knew I could use it for all of my runs. So last week, I used it for a bunch of easy runs. I used it for strides. I used it for some 400s at 3K pace. It is a shoe that responds to whatever pace you put into it. A couple months ago, I used it for a couple of marathon pace tempos that were like 40 or 45 minutes long. It felt great for that, for like those longer efforts. I've used it for some like mile repeats at threshold. Felt great for that. Because it's so light, it really feels like you can take it to those faster paces without it getting in the way. So again, really versatile. Another thing that's really impressed me about it is how comfortable it is on long runs. I've used it for, I think my longest run in it was 16 miles, and my feet felt great, like from beginning to end. No blisters, no hot spots, no discomfort from the upper. So Brooks has really made a shoe that can really do it all. I think that if I wanted to use it for a marathon, I could use it very comfortably. I would prefer to race in a super shoe, but based on how it's performed for me so far, I think it'll be a great marathon or even half marathon racer for some people. So Brooks Hyperion Max, I hope you enjoyed this review. Check out our full-length review at Doctors of Running. If you have any questions, leave them down below or shoot us an email at doctorsofrunning@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.